The film begins with a mother and daughter. The mother's name is Yushi, and the daughter's name is Mi. Mi is still young, not going to school, and every day some children come to play with her. One day, when some other children come to play with Mi, Yushi remembers something and, after thoroughly checking the house, sets out to do it. But when she returns home, she finds no children at home, not even Mi. For a while, she thinks she might be playing with her friends or gone to their house. But when a lot of time passes, she investigates. The children tell her that Mi has been missing for a long time. Hearing this, she becomes extremely panicked. After searching everywhere for Mi, she calls her husband and informs him that Mi is missing. By this time, the police have arrived at her house and she has filed a complaint. The police, and even everyone else, spend the entire day trying to find Mi. But Mi is nowhere to be found. Everyone returns home exhausted. At night, when Yushi goes to the washing machine to put away the dirty clothes, she cries out loud because her daughter, Mi, was trapped inside the machine and suffocated to death. This was a huge loss for Yu. A year passes, and we see that Yu still hasn't recovered from the trauma. She now understands because she knew the lock on her machine was faulty. If she had replaced it a few days earlier, the accident might not have happened. Despite numerous therapies, she still can't move on. One day, Yushi's mother brings her a leaflet. It describes a temple where the belongings of the deceased are taken and burned in a ritual, allowing one to move on. Yushi's mother wanted Yushi to visit that temple, and Yushi too is lost in thought. But suddenly, the pamphlet falls from Yu's hand, standing near the window, and due to the strong wind, it starts flying forward. Yushi runs to catch it, and the pamphlet lands on a doll box. Joshi looks at the doll inside the strange old box. For some reason, she's so attracted to it, it feels like her own daughter. She buys the doll and brings it home. That evening, when Yu's husband returns home, he notices that Yu is very happy today. He is both surprised and delighted by this change in her. Yu had even prepared a delicious meal for everyone. He happily sits down at the dining table and is shocked to see a doll sitting on his daughter's chair. He falls silent upon seeing the doll, knowing that if it was the doll that had improved Yu's mood, he wouldn't take it away from her. Days pass like this, as she raises the doll like her own daughter. She brings clothes for it, bathes it, washes it, and cleans it. And the strangest thing we notice is that the doll's hair and nails keep growing, which Yu even trims. But she herself doesn't realize it's just a doll. How can its hair or nails grow? Even after so much time had passed, every time Grandfather Hiko saw Yu's doll, he was terrified. He never felt good about it. One day, he even took Yushi to the doctor and told him about the doll. The doctor called Grandfather Hiko personally and told him not to take the doll away from Yushi. She was acting like an animal to his wife. Just as people often raise animals like their children and move on, Yoshi is moving on because of the doll. Grandpa Eiko understands, and life begins to return to normal. During this time, they receive the good news that a baby is soon to be born. It was as if a new life had come into Yushi's home. She began to live again. Some time passed, and they had another daughter, completing their family. They named her the same name as their first daughter. After Mai Mai's birth, Yushi seemed to have forgotten about the doll. She didn't throw it away, but she started keeping it aside. Sometimes Yushi would use the doll to calm Mai down. One day, she sees on the baby monitor where she had left the doll next to Mai. The doll was now on top of Mai. Yushi and her mother immediately rush to Mai and find that Mai was crying, and the doll's hair had even hurt her neck. They become very upset, and Yu's mom angrily throws the doll aside. She tells Yushi all this to her husband, Dada Hiko, who decides to lock the doll back up. When he goes into his daughter's room to do so, he first sees the doll's box, which has strange incantations written on it. Dada ignores this, and they both lock the doll back up again. A while passes. Everything is normal. Mai is grown up and is now going to school. One day, when she returns from school, she finds some marble balls. One marble suddenly starts moving towards her closet and lands inside. When she opens the closet to find her marble ball, she spots the doll's box and takes it out. When she shows the doll to Yushi, Yushi is a little surprised but doesn't react much because it was just a doll. However, Yushi notices something strange. The doll's hair has grown much longer, and she remembers very well how she cut it herself. And later that night, when she tells her grandfather that the doll's hair and nails have grown, he doesn't pay much attention, saying, "It's an old doll. Who knows if you cut them or not?" Yushi ignores these things, and life goes back to normal. One day, we see Mai talking to the doll and we hear its voice, confirming that it is a living doll. Similarly, one night, Mike becomes afraid of the doll, and she comes to sleep with Yushi, telling him that she doesn't know why, but she's afraid of the doll. Yushi still doesn't pay much attention to her son's words. The next day, one of Mai's friends and her mother come to Yushi's house. The two children go into the room and start playing with the doll, when suddenly the other girl who had come home starts crying loudly. When the two women go into the room and check, they discover that the new girl had bite marks on her hand. Mike and the girl tell them that the doll had done it. The doll had bitten the girl. But they both refuse to believe this, and Yushi thinks it must have been Mike who was lying out of fear and blaming the doll. Anyway, she apologizes to the other child's mother, and they leave. Then, while working at night, Yushi goes into Mai's room and sees that Mai was wearing a paper bag over her face. Ignoring this, she begins to notice how messed up Mai's clothes are. As she began tidying up the room, she became furious because Mai had cut out all the pictures of her eldest daughter. She had ruined many family photos, and this enraged Yushi. To scold Mai, she lifted the paper pack from Mai's head and saw that she was sitting there, with Mai following behind. This was the second incident of the day. Yushi ignored it for the time being, and the next day, Yushi received a call from school. Mai's drawing teacher had urgently summoned Yu because Yushi had drawn a mother and daughter from a noose, a very disturbing drawing. How could a child's thoughts be so disturbing? This disturbed even Yushi. Yushi had also made another drawing, in which a girl was walking on water. This time, Yushi understood that everything was happening because of the doll, but she still refused to talk to anyone and went to sleep. At night, Mai came to her again in fear. As Yushi began to fondle her, she realized it wasn't Mai. When she looked at her lap, she saw the doll. She screamed loudly, and Grandpa Iko woke up. Grandpa Hiko comforted her and put her to sleep. No one listened to her. But Yushi had now decided that she would tell Grandpa Hiko the truth about the doll in the morning. But Grandpa Iko still walked in the morning, so he left the house. Yushi, enraged, threw the doll into a bag and put it in the garbage. Afterwards, she returned home to cook dinner. Suddenly, she heard the main door open. When she goes to check, she finds the doll sitting at the door with a paper bag over its head. Enraged, Yushi begins hitting the doll's head with the rolling pin she's holding. She nearly crushes it completely. But then, the next moment, she sees the doll sitting on Mai's bed, and the person she had killed was none other than her own daughter, Mai. Seeing this, she screams loudly and regains consciousness. It was all just a nightmare, perhaps the doll itself, shown to her. As soon as she regained consciousness, the doorbell rang. This time, when Yushi went to check, the doll was indeed outside the door, and the municipal workers had put it back with a note, as such large scrap was prohibited. Yushi becomes enraged, and takes the doll downstairs, hands it to the garbage collectors, and after speaking with them, she puts the doll into the municipal truck. The men agree, and Yushi relaxes and returns home. She was doing her routine chores when she suddenly heard a noise outside. When she went outside and saw the reason, she was completely devastated. The man she had given the doll to was crushed to death inside his own garbage truck. A death so horrific that no one could even see it. Yu was devastated because she realized that the doll had done all this. When she returns from the murder scene, she sees her daughter holding the doll in her hand, furious at Yushi for giving the doll to the garbage man. Yushi also doesn't understand who told her daughter Mai these things. At this point, we again notice that the doll's hair has grown. Yushi doesn't say anything to her daughter, and they return home with the doll. But now Yu has started keeping a constant watch on her daughter and the doll. She even tells her grandfather, Hikako, about her fears. But when the grandfather doesn't believe her, Yushi shows him the baby monitor. Where I was talking to that doll, Yushi says, "Believe it or not, this doll is definitely hidden." But Koko, the donor, tells her to ignore all this and says, "I think you're under a lot of stress." Yushi goes back to sleep, and the next day, while talking to her son, Hadan, the kitchen door suddenly closes behind her. She doesn't panic. She thinks he must have closed it himself. Through the lip of the door, she sees her daughter in the darkness of the kitchen. But then, the next moment, she feels someone running behind her. She goes to Mai's room and sees Mai hiding under her blanket. When she lifts the blanket to look for her, Mai immediately goes under the bed. When Yushi looks under the bed, there's no one there. And now, an invisible object, covering itself with a blanket, runs away. Yushi sees it, and it's not a doll. It's not her daughter. It was some evil entity. Yushi becomes even more terrified, remembering the time when her first daughter, Mai, died hiding inside a washing machine. She quickly goes to the laundry room and discovers that her daughter was indeed hiding inside the washing machine. As she opens it, a terrifying-looking girl attacks her. She tries to hit Yushi, but Yu pushes her away and throws her to the ground. It turns out it was her own daughter, Mai, who was severely injured from being thrown from such a height. They immediately bring her to the hospital. During an examination, Mai's body is covered in even more injuries, including marks on her waist that appear to have been tortured or scratched with nails. Even Grandpa Heiko is starting to believe the doll, and by this time, Yuhi is completely devastated. Her summer is over. She tells Grandfather Eiko to go and perform a ritual on the doll, but to get rid of it. Grandfather Eiko returns home and searches the box for the spells. He finds Yasumoto's name written on it. Upon searching, he discovers that he was a very famous doll maker. He sees many dolls made by Yasumoto that look exactly like the doll. Meanwhile, the temple he contacted, telling them about the doll and sending them a picture of the doll's box, immediately contacts him and tells him to take extreme care. The doll you have is not an ordinary doll. It's a living doll, and it will definitely harm you. We will come and take it away before it does anything bad to you. Grandfather Eiko, who has never known about such things, is the only one who has ever known about such things. He hadn't heard of them. He's confused about what living dolls are. He searches for them on YouTube and finds a story about a group of people who were going to Yasumoto's village to learn the truth about the living dolls. The story these children had heard about the living dolls was that one day, Yasumoto's daughter disappeared and was never found. From that day on, his wife began to believe that her daughter's soul had entered a doll made by Yasumoto, and she began raising it as her own. One day, when Yasumoto's wife died, Yasumoto buried the doll with her. However, sometime later, the doll was seen wandering in the woods. People made up many stories, one of which was that the doll had escaped from the grave and had begun searching for its owner, Arai, Yasumoto's daughter, whom no one had been able to find. Grandfather Ei, who was watching this story, couldn't believe it at all, so he searched for news of Arai's disappearance, and it turned out to be true. It was shown that the doll hadn't been kept at home that day, but had been kept at Yushi's mother's house, where the doll had revealed its true identity. It had been openly harassing Yushi's mother and had even attacked her 2 or 3 times. So Yushi's mother called Grandfather Eiko and told him everything. Grandfather Eiko immediately agreed to come to her house, but when she went back inside, she found that she wasn't at home at that time. She goes out to look for her and finds her sitting on a bridge. She quickly pulls her off the bridge, as she could have fallen into the river and died at any moment. Returning home with the child, she sees that Grandpa Hiko has arrived at their building. Mi was with Grandpa Hiko, and Mi was holding the doll. If Mi and the doll were there, who did Yoshi's mom save? Looking around, she realizes that everything she did was either a hallucination or a trick by the doll. Yoshi's mom also had bite marks on her hands and feet. CCTV footage reveals that the doll was responsible for all the actions and that it was sitting on the bridge at the time and performing all these tricks. Grandpa Iko still couldn't believe that a doll could do so much, so he matches the bite marks on his watch and hand to his daughter's teeth, which didn't match. Grandfather Ko begins to believe something is amiss. The next day, the temple owner arrives and takes the doll's box from him. They wrap the doll in a white cloth and begin performing rituals. Afterward, it is burned along with several other dolls. But here, we learn the priest's true identity. They didn't actually burn the real doll because it was an intake piece and could fetch a lot of money. They deliberately used a fake doll to deceive Yushi and Grandfather Hiko and sell the real one. As the priest is about to take the doll to the station, hair suddenly starts coming out of his mouth. As he's trying to remove the hair, he stumbles and falls onto the accelerator, dying instantly. Priest's condition worsens, and everyone picks him up and brings him to an emergency hospital. We see that Grandfather Echo also worked there, and they all discover the priest's truth. Fearful, the priest returns the doll to Grandfather Echo, explaining that the doll is actually a curse, and that it was his debt, alcoholism, that had caused the other priest's condition. Just then, one of Grandfather Echo's nurses arrives. As she picks up the doll, a tooth falls out of its mouth and into her hands. The nurse is astonished. How could this have happened? A tooth from a doll's mouth. They then perform an MRI on the doll and discover that inside the doll was the entire skeleton of a human girl. It was a tooth. This shocks everyone. They immediately inform the police and take the doll with them for investigation. But since Priest and Grandpa know what this doll can do, they decide to chase the police car to prevent the doll from harming him. Suddenly, the policeman finds the doll. He finds a photograph. When he looks at it, it shows the doll's terrifying face, which frightens him so much that he loses his focus. Suddenly, a girl tied to a shopper appears on the road. He tries to brake but fails, and the girl gets caught in his car's tire. The policeman is shocked and distraught by the entire ordeal. We see that another man accompanied Yushi at this time. After listening to the doll's entire story, he puts it in the same box and takes it away. This man's intention was to destroy the doll's evil energies. He takes them to the home of a retired police officer named Harun, who is now wheelchair-bound. He introduces himself and then begins to tell them the true story of the doll. He explains that one day, Yasumoto came to him at the police station. Yasumoto is the same person who used to make the best dolls in Japan, and his dolls were very expensive at the time. He was very famous, but the day he came to me, he looked very sad. He told me a very terrible truth about one doll. The story is about the birth of a daughter in Yasumoto's family. Yasumoto's wife was unhappy with the daughter. She wanted a son, but nothing could change what had happened. Time passed and the girl grew up, and even then they had no other children. In this anger and grief, Yasumoto's wife hanged her daughter and then herself. But because the rope was weak, it broke, and Yasumoto's wife survived, but not his daughter. When Yasumoto learned of this, he was devastated. He loved his wife very much. His wife's crime would have gone unpunished. So he pretended to be carrying his daughter around the village and then secretly dissolved her dead body in boiling water. When the body had completely dissolved, he fashioned a complete doll out of her skeleton, and it was this doll that was currently in Yushor's hands. His wife, deeply ashamed of her actions, began keeping the doll with her. A few days later, she too died in grief. Her last wish before dying was to be buried in the same pot in which her daughter was boiled, and to bury the doll with her. Everything happened exactly as she had promised. This police officer explains that Yasumoto came to me at that time to confess his crime. We filed a report against him, but to arrest him, we needed evidence against him. Yasumoto took us to the place where his wife and daughter were buried, and when we excavated the grave, only Yasumoto's wife was there. Someone had taken the doll, not the doll itself, because Yasumoto's dolls used to fetch a lot of money. The man who had brought Yushi and Grandpa Eiko here explains that he has a way to end the doll's evil, to destroy its demonic form. He begins a ritual, explaining that after this ritual they must find the doll's real grave and bury it there. Before the ritual, they learn the exact location of the grave. Before they can even begin, the doll brings a terrible storm upon them. It destroys everything. Lights flicker and people become unsteady. Things fall, and they see the doll's terrifying form. As a result, the priest has also been severely injured. The priest says no, pouring holy water over the doll to relax it. Then they complete their ritual, as the priest was injured and unable to continue. Therefore, he entrusts Yushi and Grandfather Hiko with the next task, lowering the doll into the dugout grave. They reach the correct location. Grandfather Hei lifts the lid of the grave, and Yushi lowers the doll inside. Meanwhile, a picture of his eldest daughter falls inside, enraging him. Just as she is about to reach the picture, the doll suddenly comes to life and grabs her, pulling her inside, forcing Grandfather Hei to save his wife. At this moment, the two of them experience a similar situation, as if their own daughter is trapped inside a washing machine. Grandfather Hiko is washing, he breaks the machine and takes his daughter out. But it's actually shown that Grandpa Hiko did indeed take his wife out, but her hair was still stuck inside the reed. Aoshi frees herself by cutting off her hair. Finally, they are freed from this nightmare and return home. Their lives have become much more normal. Some time passes and we see that the priest who performed the ritual has come to visit Yu and Grandpa Ko. Here, Yushi's mother shows the priest footage from the baby monitor, which clearly shows me talking to the doll. She was telling the doll, "I don't want to go home because my mother beats me too much. I want to stay here with you because you has given me a mother's love, and I want that motherly love." This caused Yu's mother to feel a little uneasy. He felt something was wrong, and the ritual wasn't complete. Here, a major twist unfolds. Yushi and Grandfather Hayo's real daughter was still with Yushi's mother. Grandfather Hiko and Yushi hadn't come to retrieve her since they returned from the island. Yushi's mother hadn't even been in contact with them, which is why she contacted the priest. But on the other hand, we see Yushi and Grandfather Iko living a normal life, even carrying their daughter around with them. But they didn't know that the person they were carrying around wasn't their real daughter. She was actually the evil doll they had retrieved from the cauldron. At that time, the doll had possessed both Grandfather Iko and Yushi, which is why the doll had come with them. The doll had fulfilled its promise. She yearned for her mother's love, and now she's living with Yushi, taking her love. While Yu's own daughter yearns for her mother's love, this horrifying movie ends in a far from happy ending.